everything I'd seen up to this point, Gotham Knights appeared to have all the makings of the ambitious, action-packed smash hit that it was clearly intended to be. I mean, who wouldn't want a new, co-op-centric take on Rocksteady's spectacular Batman Arkham games that's built for the current console generation? But then, as I played it for 30 hours, it just kept hitting me with bad news. Underwhelming combat. A weak, predictable story. Puzzling progression design choices. Sub-30 frame rates. I'm left wondering how it went so wrong. A few good parts of it shine through in a few key areas, like the impressive open-world Gotham sandbox, but its problems never let me enjoy the moment-to-moment crime fighting nearly as much as Bat Family fans deserve. Just like Bruce Wayne, Gotham Knights was born to a well-respected and rich family, in this case, the 4 third-person action games in the Arkham series. That's not to say that this is a sequel to those games. In a lot of places, it goes out of its way to break with Arkham canon and chart its own vigilante-based course. But when you're stealthily grappling from ledge to ledge, crawling through ventilation shafts, and beating up groups of criminals in a rhythmic combat system, it's impossible not to compare it to the vastly superior Arkham games. One key difference is that here you get to play as your choice of the 4 mostly lovable heroes, Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Hood, and Robin. But no matter who you play as, you'll still zip around in open-world Gotham, delivering justice to all manner of superstitious cowards and unraveling a troubling mystery in the iconic city's murky streets. That mystery revolves around the death of none other than the Batman himself, which serves as a solid kicking off point for a new generation of crime fighters to take the spotlight. In the wake of the Dark Knight's demise, Bruce Wayne's ragtag gang of current and former sidekicks step into the fray to fill his formidable shoes, and serves as a strong premise to what ultimately turns out to be a lackluster story full of foreseeable twists and unsurprising turns.
Let's go back out there and stop Breeze before he kills anyone else.
I knew exactly who this masked character was when I first laid eyes on him, and while I really like the Court of Owls as villains in the comics, here the shadowy secret society never manages to pose any kind of actual threat.
The last time an intruder set foot here was more than a century ago. The punishment for this insult remains the same.
It's all followed up with an ending that's foreshadowed so frequently and unsubtly that I involuntarily cringed when they actually went through with it.
Hiya, bird brain.
Combat is sadly one of the worst parts about Gotham Knights, and that's not a great thing to have to say about a game that's virtually all about combat. It's not the worst thing I've ever played, but if you were hoping for a return to the smooth, incredibly fine-tuned brawls of the Arkham series, you're in for a rude awakening when you're smacked in the face with this underwhelming substitute.
Right there! That's the bad!
The oversimplification of combat is perhaps best exemplified by the complete absence of anything resembling the Arkham games' counter system, an omission that still baffles me even after completing it. At its best, dishing out justice is merely boring. You just repeat the same attacks and wait for your special ability meter to charge up and enemy health bars to whittle down. At its worst, it's actively frustrating, as you're hit by attacks that seem almost impossible to dodge and don't feel like you have full control of your character. It doesn't help that the oddly brief campaign is padded out with hours of busy work, like repeated sections where you have to wander around Gotham interrogating a string of different criminal factions, headed by everyone from Harley Quinn to Mr. Freeze to gather clues about the next story development.
Get away from my storm engine!
And doing dull side quests to unlock table stakes features like fast travel. In between all those chores, you'll also have to contend with the RPG elements that force you to grind and min-max equipment before the next story mission can be tackled. All of these things do little more than drag out a story that's rarely worth the squeeze, and make the pacing even more of a drag than it already is. Even if you are just running around Gotham aimlessly or tackling minor crimes though, the city itself can at least be a highlight. It may not get a lot right, but WB Games Montreal succeeds at capturing the fantasy of exploring a crime-ridden city as a caped crusader, and I lost hours of time just grapple hooking around and exploring the area. Doing so with a friend is also rewarding, especially since there are no limitations for how far you can be from one another. You can fight together or split up to search for clues to unlock the next main mission, or tackle optional quests twice as fast as you'd be able to do on your own, even if those generally just boil down to more repetitive punching. When so much of Gotham Knights is dull, it's fortunate that each of the 4 protagonists are likable and well written, and there are plenty of amusing quips to help you get through the letdown of a plot.
Freeze. Freeze can make weather now?
Freeze can make weather now.
Sure, Red Hood mostly just keeps talking about how he died that one time like the edgelord that he is.
You know, you weren't the first Robin, kid.
Or the second.
And Robin swings wildly between being deeply depressed by his mentor's death and making silly jokes. But it's still impressive that these B-listers and sidekicks manage to step up to the plate as much as they do. It's a cool touch how all the cutscenes adapt to whoever you're playing as at that moment, with custom dialogue. And I love how many cool costume options are available for each of them. That said, glitches do occasionally cause otherwise touching story moments to instantly transform into comedies. Like this cutscene where Red Hood's hoodie drawstrings tried to kill everyone.
Gotham City becomes ground zero for a goddamn war.
Compounding the gameplay issues are the RPG mechanics, which only serve to further muddy the waters with disorganized menus that have you grinding to unlock and craft better gear. It just never let me feel completely in control of my loadout. For example, you might want to obtain weapons that apply a freezing status effect to your enemies, but might not have the right items available at your current level to let you create that build. Trading with other players or targeting certain loot isn't an option, so you're forced to use whatever you've got lying around from random drops. That was a constant frustration. Combat never gained enough complexity to become interesting, but I can give it credit for the diversity of options available to you in its 4 playable characters. You can opt to be a DPS-focused, gun-toting maniac with Red Hood, or a stealthy, tech-hacking egghead by playing Batgirl. Stealthing around with Robin to take out enemies quietly is a markedly different experience from playing Nightwing, who specializes in dancing around the map and buffing allies. And that means you can pick the character that best suits your playstyle and customize it to your liking. Momentum abilities which do things like let Robin become invisible or let Nightwing cast a healing bubble also help to break up the monotony, at least a little bit. To be clear, I wouldn't call any of them good due to the failings of the combat system as a whole, but at least they're different. If you can conscript someone into joining you even after they've watched this review,
Well, Batman would have hated that.
playing with a friend is undoubtedly a better experience. For one, combat tends to go by much faster with someone else at your side, and pulling off stunts like team attacks where 2 characters work together to execute a sweet finisher is one of the better things combat has to offer. Unfortunately, many missions feel like they're balanced specifically for 2 crime fighters, leaving anyone hoping to treat this as a solely single-player game in a little bit of a lurch.
Brace yourself.
Gotham Knights also suffers from performance issues that range from amusing bugs to annoying hindrances, the most grave of which is the frame rate. On the Xbox Series X, it was rare to see a stable 30 FPS, especially when out in the open world or during cutscenes, and God forbid I ride on my motorcycle for any amount of time. Beyond that, my time in Gotham saw occasional crashes, disconnects during multiplayer sessions, and various bugs. I wouldn't call it broken, but it certainly was not a smooth ride. Gotham Knights is a consistently disappointing return to Batman's troubled city, and a distinct step backwards from the past decade plus of Batman games. Even if running around Gotham in 2-player co-op can be decent fun, and each of the 4 playable crime fighters are well executed in their dialogue and distinct moves, too many of the fundamentals fall short for me to recommend it. From the inconsistent frame rates, to the weak story, to one-note combat that rarely feels good, there was virtually always something going wrong to make sure I wasn't experiencing the triumphant return with my friends at my side I had envisioned. For more, check out our reviews of A Plague Tale: Requiem and Scorn, and for everything else, stick with IGN.